How modernism has influenced graphic design and advertising in Australia during the 1930s to 50s and the 2000s. Today we look at famous Australian National Travel Association designer Gert Sellheim and how he reinvented the image of Australian culture in comparison to the 2006 ad campaign of Where the Bloody Hell Are You? The German-born artist and designer Gert Sellheim was born in Estonia in 1901. He lived with his parents, who were quite well off, and 3 younger siblings. His talents lied in language, music and arts, which are areas said to have been inherited from his rich family traditions. Sellheim fought in 1919 in the Estonian War of Freedom and the following Soviet-Russian triumph in 1920. He then migrated to Australia, landing in Fremantle, accompanied by a friend in 1926. Upon arrival, he soon discovered his qualifications weren't accepted by the Australian authorities and worked humping bags of wheat in the York district of Western Australia. Sellheim in 1930 began designing and exhibiting posters and gained critical attention in Melbourne's annual exhibition of the Arts and Crafts Society. In 1931, Sellheim moved to Melbourne, where he completed most of his famous work, and where he started his well-known job with the ANTA, working as an industrial and commercial designer, where he began to produce posters. In 1939, he was commissioned by the Australian Government Tourist Bureau in Melbourne, located on the Victorian Government Tourist Bureau Hotel Australia Building, 272 Collins Street, Melbourne. The artwork depicted a cross-section through 4 forms of transport: rail, road, air, and sea, which are all created in flat colours. It was said that the modern trains and boats and planes dramatically confronted potential customers. Following his amazing artwork, Sellheim later that year was awarded Solomon Prize by the Art Gallery of New South Wales. Soon after that, Sellheim was granted the opportunity to work with Qantas Empire Airways, where he designed the distinctive flying kangaroo that is still seen today. He continued with them for quite a few years, creating souvenirs, menus, letterheads and posters. In 1947, he moved to Sydney with his wife Irene Evans and lived there until he passed away at the age of 69 in 1970. Sellheim's designs were his own. The way he used colour lithograph was iconic. He created culture through his work and tried to normalise and unify Aboriginal culture. Some designs he did for the public and private buildings and commercial projects, Sellheim would skillfully incorporate Aboriginal motifs. In his 150 Years in Australia book, he incorporated stylized animals engraved into the printed panels of the chapter headings to emphasize the respect that he had for the First Land people. Gert Sellheim's travel posters promoted modernism at the time, due to him creating the well-known beach culture identity for Australia. In the 1930s, modernism in the design world focused on designers' set of ideas, visions of how the design world could transform human consciousness and improve material conditions. Gert's use of fit-looking men and women in bathers throughout many of his posters, depicted with golden brown tans and smiling faces, created a vision of luxuriousness of the beach and warmth, emphasizing and transforming viewers' perspectives of the beach as a place to be. His posters focus on many of the modernist principles. 5 that stand out through most of his posters, especially the 2 below, are: design must evoke the spirit of the times, less is more, modern machines and technologies, elementary geometric forms of the grid, and universality. Looking at Gert Sellheim's poster, labelled Australia for Sun and Surf, in 1963, it is clear through his use of the warm yellow sky, the contrasting blue water, and the slightly tanned female that Gert was trying to portray a very luxurious image of our beaches. This design of for sun and surf evokes the spirit of what Australians are like during the summer, and advertises this idea that if you come to Australian beaches, you will experience this warm sun, refreshing cool water, or being surrounded by girls in bathers, creating an almost eye candy for this promotion. We see the same idea promoted in his 1935 poster called To the Seaside. He depicts our beach culture to endure beautifully tanned, fit men and women as the people that you'll see at the beaches. This idea is that the beach is luxurious and calming and makes it a very adult thing to do. Sellheim doesn't show families at the beaches, as it would change the idea of laying in the hot sun, hearing the waves crash, to children screaming and causing a muck. The simplistic design of these posters which touches into the idea of less is more, is created by the flat, warm tones and colours to assist in creating the warm atmosphere that these posters are trying to portray. Within the first poster, Sellheim's use of layers of curves from the Australian label to the girl's arms outstretched and the sun and surf emphasise movement. Movement of the water and the waves, even though the water is mostly still in the poster. The same thing is done in the second poster by the running movement created by the two people, evoking the excitement and fast-paced life that Australians live. In Sellheim's posters, it is evident how he doesn't need to paint a whole picture of the beach to promote the idea of this beach culture. The poster speaks without having to be explicit in what they are trying to tell you and creates universality, the idea that everyone around the world is able to understand the message that is promoted by the posters and what it's trying to express. Sellheim's boomerang poster, which is designed in 1957, was one of his most famous posters due to the high Indigenous influence. Sellheim, through his years of design making, was very focused on incorporating an Indigenous influence into his piece and creating this unity of their culture and Australia through his work. The black, yellow and orange, used throughout the entirety of the boomerang, enforces the Indigenous influence of the poster, as the colours are very earthy and touch on the idea that Australia is the red land and a sunburnt country. This poster depicts many Australian imagery, such as the Southern Cross found in the background on the right, various Australian animals such as the kangaroo and emu, and a woman standing behind a surfboard next to the sun. During 1950, when this poster was created, many Indigenous Australians were not eligible for the dole or other state and federal benefits, which non-Indigenous people received. By 1950s, most of them lived in poverty, on the fringes of non-Indigenous societies, and had lost their lands. Despite all these struggles Indigenous Australians had during the time of Gert Sellheim's work, he tried to present a united nation through his artwork, ensuring that he was appropriating the culture and representing it in a respectful way. The controversial 2006 Australian ad called Where the Bloody Hell Are You? Focuses on compelling aspects of Australia which appeal strongly to global travellers and the personality, the lifestyle and the places that will motivate them to visit Australia now. In the ad campaign, it demonstrates some of Australia's finest and most adventurous spots. It creates a vision about Australia's lifestyle that transforms the human consciousness away from the negative connotations. Example, we've taken the sharks out of the pool. The ad shows a lot of things Aussie, such as having a beer on tap, being able to ride camels in Alice Springs, our amazing white beaches, the pools right next to the ocean, kangaroos being a part of everyday life, red land and the sunburnt country, the Great Barrier Reef, Uluru, Sydney Harbour Bridge during New Year's Eve, as well as Indigenous dancers wearing traditional face paint. This ad focuses on experience seekers and involving them in a culture that is already so prevalent in Australian society today. When analysing this campaign and the use of imagery and symbols to Sellheim's work, we are able to see how Sellheim's modernistic take on Australia in the 1930s to 50s is still being carried out today. He created a fresh baseline for tourism development and a culture and idealistic view of Australia. In the table above, you'll see some of the comparisons between Sellheim's work and the 2006 ad campaign of Where the Bloody Hell Are Ya, and how each are influenced by each other and help with Tourism Australia.